This is Gemara Beitzah Daf Ches, the second day of Rosh Hashanah's Daf. I hope all these Daf will get up in Mirz Hashem before Yontif. Whoever wants to prepare properly, another way to prepare to have the Daf under their belt. Today's share has been sponsored generously L'Schos Refuah Shlema for Ephraim Shlema B'Mindel Rachel. We're all davening and learning B'Schos that the surgery should be successful and he should leave the hospital healthy very, very soon. Of course, all the Israel, as well as Choshech Mishra Chaim and Devaira and Shir Miriam Bas Rezel Gittel. We're holding on Zayin Amud Beis. We're about 12 lines from the bottom. First one in line is Ella Im Kain. We just finished two different explanations: the explanation of Rabbah and the explanation of Rav Yosef. Exactly how to learn the machlekes in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, we discussed if someone could shecht on Yontif, and is he allowed to subsequently bury and cover over the blood, the mitzvah of Ki'isoy Adam, with the dirt. Of course, the issue being that the dirt is muksa, the issue being you're not allowed to dig on Yontif, etc. So we had a machlekes, Rabbah and Rav Yosef in the precise order that Beis Shammai allowed you to do it. Rav Yosef said, Beis Shammai says first dig and then shecht, whereas Rabbah said no, first shecht and then dig. So Amar Leah Bayi Rav Yosef. So Abaye takes issue and he says to Rav Yosef, again, Rav Yosef being the opinion that said first dig and then shecht, says Abaye to Rav Yosef, Lema Mar v'Rabba b'Rav Zira Amar Rav Kamifli Gitu. Are you arguing with Rabbah and Rav Zira in the following discussion? Amar Rav Zira Amar Rav Hasheichet so she'itin over lemata v'over lemalo. Says Rav, excuse me, Rav Zira Amar Rav, when you do shchita, kisi adam is not merely covering the blood. You have to have dirt on the bottom and dirt on top. Shenamar, as the Torah teaches, Shachas Dama v'Chisau ba'afar. Afar loy namar. It doesn't say afar loy namar elo bi'afar melami sheshech yitzar shitin afar lemata afar lemalo. It says the pasuk in the Torah v'Shachas Dama v'Chisau bi'afar, with the dirt, showing you have to have the dirt on the top and the bottom, encapsulating the dam. So suggests the Gemara, is this the machlekes? Demar, that you Rav Yosef islay to Rav Zira, you hold the Rav Zira, and that's what you Rav Yosef said according to Beis Shammai. First dig up the dirt. Dig up the dirt to make sure it's on the bottom. V'Rabba last day to Rav Zira, and Rabba that said no, you go first do the shchita, doesn't hold the Rav Zira. So says Abaye, are you Rav Yosef and Rabba arguing whether you need to have the dirt on the bottom or not? Says Rav Yosef, Amar Alei, Rav Yosef responds, no. 5 lines from the bottom. Beinli Didi, Beinli Rabba, Islam de Rav Zira. We both agree with Rav Zira, you have to have dirt on the top and the bottom. What are we arguing? Rabba, Savarika, Avar Lamata, and Eloi. We're afraid you're not going to end up shechting. You're not going to end up having fresh fruit on Yontif. Excuse me, the opposite, one more time. According to me, says Rabbi Yosef, what is the concern? According to Rabbah, one more time, the concern is that you're going to dig for no reason. You'll be over on the halachas of digging for no reason. Says Rabbi Yosef, you know what I'm concerned? If we make this too difficult for you, you're going to say, I don't need any fresh meat for Yontif. And of course, there's going to be a lacking in the covenant of Yontif. Therefore, says Rabbi Yosef, that's why I require you to dig first. So the machlekes Rabbi Yosef and Rabbah is not the machlekes whether you need the dirt on the bottom. Everyone agrees you do. Everyone agrees with the statement. Like we learned from the pasuk, ba'afar. Says Rabbi Yosef, the machlekes is how far are we going to go? Are we concerned you're going to forget shechting in the entirety, or are we concerned that you're going to deal with muksa inappropriately? Says the Gemara, 2 lines to the bottom, 2 lines to the bottom now. Everyone agreed. Once you do the shchita, take up the dirt and cover over the dam. Says Rav Zrika in the name of Rav Yudah. He says only if the decker, the spade, the shovel is already in the ground during the day. Why? Because if not, you're over in chayfer on digging, as we'll see in a moment. 1 second, says the Gemara, you're over on crushing, teiching, you're grinding up the earth. No, you're not over. Moving along to today's Daf Chesam and Aleph. Excuse me, because we're dealing with loose earth It crumbles on its own, so there's no problem crumbling it. Guma, but you're on digging, you're making a hole in the ground. Because if you only need the dirt, you're not digging for the purpose of the hole. Of course, there's two reasons to dig. You can dig because you need a hole to plant, which is the deraisa digging, or you could dig because you want the dirt. Digging because you want the dirt only starts with the derabanan. And in our case, if you dig because you want the dirt, there's not going to be any Isser at all, and that's going to be the reason why it's going to be allowed. So says the Gemara, it's only going to start if the shovel's in the ground. Because the shovel's in the ground, then you're not going to have any of these issues. The earth is going to be soft. It's not a problem making the hole because the shovel's in the ground. And that is the case where both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel would agree. If you're ready to the shechita, you're allowed to cover up the blood. Says the Gemara, She'ifer Kira Mubayim. And the Mishnah concluded, the Mishnah concluded with almost an enigmatic, strange statement. The dirt of the ash of the oven is prepared. Who's talking about ovens? Says the Gemara, Efer Kira Mandachashvei. Who mentioned oven? It's like from left field. By the way, the oven ash is prepared. Oven? Who? Where's there an oven? Amar Rabba Amar Ve'efer Kira Muchanu. Says Rabbi, you know what the Mishnah teaches us? The Mishnah teaches us and the ashes. Number one, if you have the shovel in the ground, then you can get out the dirt to cover over the blood. Givaldik. Number two, if you have ashes in an oven, that is also considered muchad prepared, and you can use that to cover over the blood. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Leishanu El Shusek Me'erev Yantif. Says Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, 1 second. Don't learn that if there's any ashes in any oven, go crazy. No way. It's only if it was burnt on Erev Yantif. Meaning these ashes were created on Erev Yantif. If the ashes were created during the day, says Rav Yehuda Marav, then it is forbidden to be used. But 1 second, even if it was burnt today, and they still have a function, you still could use these ashes to fry an egg, roast an egg, then it would as well be permitted, it would not be muksal. Says Gemara, let's prove this last point. Also, the Raya Litzah, if you can roast an egg and Beitzah mutter, then it's going to be mutter, exactly like we just explained. And that's what the Mishnah means. The Mishnah says that if the ash of the dirt is prepared, it means and the ash of the dirt is prepared, which the Gemara is qualifying to refer to only either if it was burnt on Erev Yantiv or if it has usage right now to roast an egg. Now the Beitzah continues. If you brought in a pile of earth to your garden or to your chorva, to a wasteland, then you're allowed to use that to cover over the blood. That dirt is set aside to be used. And that's another way that you could do the kisi adam. So you so far have 3 ways of doing it. We have way number 1, which is the Mishnah shovels in the ground, you get out the dirt. Way number 2 is the ashes of your oven, which is either burnt during the day or that have the usage of roasting an egg, could be used to cover the blood. And number 3 says the Gemara, if you have dirt prepared for any which reason, you could use it to cover the blood. And says Rav Yehuda, a person could bring in a basket full of earth and use it for whatever he needs. Which of course is similar to what we just said, that when you bring in this earth, you can use it to cover the blood. And doesn't mean stam, you bring in dirt and you leave wherever you want. You put it in a designated place. This is my dirt, this is my corner of the dirt that I'm going to use. Then you let it do whatever you want with that dirt. Meisvei asked the Gemara 8 lines from the bottom. Koi ein shaykh than a koi. What is a koi? A koi is an animal. I think a koi, or some people say kvi. I think the right way is koi. Koi is an animal which is safik behema, safik chaya. You don't know what type of animal is. Is it a domesticated animal or not? What is the halacha with such an animal? Says the Gemara. So that is what a koi is. We're not sure. And now the question is about the kisui hadam. The one halacha that we need to know is kisui hadam is only by chayos. Chayos and oifos. Those are the animals that you do kisui hadam, not by a behema. So says the Gemara, what is a koi? Which category is there kisi adam? Says the Beitzah, don't shacht it. And if you did shacht it, don't cover up the blood. Asked the Gemara, according to that which we just said a moment ago, what did we just say? That the case that we're discussing is that you have a pile of earth in your corner of your house. So what's the big deal? Even your guy, even your suffix animal, you have dirt prepared, it's not muksa, so cover it up. What's the problem? Says the Gemara, one second. According to what you're suggesting, they have a pile of dirt waiting. Kira. 1 second. I'll ask you another question. Why don't you cover it over with the ashes from the oven? Notes. Again, we have 3 ways we explain that you could potentially have dirt, have a way to do the kisi adam. Either the shovel in the ground, the dakar notes, or the ifrakira, the ashes of the oven. So you're busy asking me from every you ever have about the dirt in the corner. What about the other 2 ways? Elo, so what are you going to respond to me? Why did you not want to use the ashes in the oven? Why did you not want to use the shovel in the ground? The last leg, because you didn't have those cases. I'll tell you we're also discussing a case when you didn't have the dirt in the corner. He says, my area safek. I feel about nami. You just taught me a statement. The whole statement was about a koi, was about this animal that we're not sure its status. Says the Gemara, 1 second. If the case is that you don't have anything prepared, you don't have the shovel in the ground, you don't have the ashes in the oven, tell me a case. Afilu vadai. Namiloi. You should tell me that what's the case, that even in a case of a vade, a regular animal, not a kai which is a suffix, even a regular animal, namiloi, you also can't do kisi adam because you don't have the dirt prepared and you don't have the shovel in the ground. Answers the Gemara, 1 second. Loi mi bayi kamar. Loi mi bayi, it's needless to say, vadai, deloish lishchait. Certainly an animal which is a vadai, which certainly you need to cover the blood. Certainly you shouldn't do the shchita. Avol sofek, emo mishim simchas, yantiv lishchat v'lechasya. No, we have more of a reason to think you'd yes be allowed to shech the kai. Because since the kai is just a sofek, it's true. You have no way of doing kisi adam. So when it comes to doing a regular animal, of course you can't do it. But maybe when it came to a kai, which is the whole thing is a suffix, we're not sure. Maybe the element of Simchas Yantiv, which should give us a bit of a understanding of Simchas Yantiv, the element of Simchas Yantiv should enable you to shech and not do kisi adam. Says the Gemara, no way. Kamash Malan, that's the chiddush of that which we're saying right now, that you're not allowed to shech the kai on Yantiv. Says the Gemara, okay. Moving over to Amid Beis, what did the Seifa say? The Seifa of the Mishnah said that if you do the shechita, don't cover over the blood. You just suggested that our Mishnah is a case that you don't have the shovel in the ground, you don't have the ashes, but the Mishnah is meduyak. The Mishnah is clear that the Seifas you don't have, the ratio you do. The ashes of an oven are only allowed to be used for a vadai. They're only allowed to be used for an animal that certainly requires kisi adam, and not for a suffix, not for the kai, which of course is a bit counterintuitive based on what we just said in Amid Aleph. Certainly a kai we should let you, which we'll see in a moment exactly how this makes sense. But again, what was the statement of Rabbah? That the ashes of the oven are only allowed to be used for animals, for the chaya, for the oif that certainly requires kisi adam, and not for the suffix like this kai. Explains the Gemara, 4 lines from the top. My time aloi. Why is it not allowed to be used for a suffix? Guma. Because there's a problem. There's a cost. You're being over an isser. You're digging a hole. 1 second. So even in the case that you certainly have to do kisi adam, it's true. You have this halacha of kisi adam, but still you're being over an isser. You're digging in the floor. Must be like Rav Abba said, that when you're digging the hole, you don't want the hole. So it's not a real issue, you're just trying to get the dirt. So do in our case. Says the Gemara, 1 second. So what's the reason that you're not allowed to do by a suffix? You know why? So you might come crush up the dirt. The Gemara is again the same shakla b'tayra again and again. V'adi nami neiksar misham ketisha. We say the same zera. V'adi kiyavi ketisha. Asiya say v'dachi esleisa say. So finally we get to the crux of it all. We figure out what's going on. When it's a vadai, when we have an animal that certainly needs to cover the blood, there's a mitzvah d'oraisa, and I say to cover the blood. Says the Gemara, Asiya say the biblical commandment to cover the blood. V'dachi, and it pushes away esleisa say. It pushes away the negative commandment forbidding you from crushing up the dirt. Says Mara, 1 second. When does that rule apply to you in Mila B'tzaras? If someone has saras on their Mila, and therefore, then we say, say, the assay of the Mila cutting off the Arla comes and overwhelms and pushes away the loisa, say the Isser of coming off saras. If you have a beggar of linen and you have to put tzitzis on it, but tzitzis are wool, that's kalayim, you're not allowed to do that. Since the only way to do it is by the assay pushing over the loisa say to come akir lab. At the moment that you uproot the lab, the moment you cut off the saras, the moment you create the climb, come moikim say that exact moment simultaneous is a real clash. The moment there's shyness, the moment you cut off the saras is the exact moment you're doing the mitzvah. That's when we say assay dechlorisa say. But also in our case, 1 second, to come akir. Lav, in our case, is much worse. When you dig up the dirt, that's the lav, that's the avera. At that precise moment, you're not doing the assay. So how are you going to explain the two cases? Again, let's understand. This is a tremendous sugya. Let's understand at least the details that the Gemara is presenting to us. Says the Gemara is a rule of Asi Asay v'dachi Lois Asay. A biblical commandment in Asay, God says, do this, pushes away a Lois Asay. How does that work? Explains the Gemara. 1 second, because maybe the Gemara wants to suggest maybe the assay of covering over the blood should allow you to be over the Isser of digging. Says the Gemara, no, it doesn't work. When does the assay, the God's commandment, push away the lois assay? That's only when it's a pure clash. It's simultaneous. The moment you cut up the saras is the moment that you're doing the milah. The moment you put on those tzitzis is the moment you're doing the shatnez. So it's a real clash. The assay overwhelms and pushes away the los assay. But in our case, what's the los assay digging? Is the los assay being pushed away by the assay? Of course not. I'm digging and then I'm going to cover over the blood. Says the Gemara, it's a serious kasha. Answers the Gemara, the case is such, the blood is there, the dirt is right next to it. As I crush over the blood, as I crush up the dirt, it falls directly on the blood. So the moment I'm being over the lab, the loisa say the avir of crushing simultaneous, I'm doing the assay of covering over the blood. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Soif, Yontav Asay, Velois Asay. How are you going to answer that? Yontav is both. Yontav is an Asay. We're dealing with covering over the blood on Yontiv. Covering over the blood in Yontiv is an Asay and a Lois Asay. Excuse me. Crushing on Yontiv is an Asay and a Lois Asay. Let me say a little bit clearer. Doing any malacha on Yantiv is both an assay and a los assay. Says in the Torah, Kol malacha avodah lo yisasu, and the Torah says b'yom Shabbosayin, b'yom Rishon Shabbosayin. So working on Yantiv is an assay and a los assay. To not work on Yantiv, covering over the blood, is one assay. Says the Gemara, the rule is one assay cannot push off an assay and a los assay. Therefore, says the Gemara, we're back to square one. How are we explaining this difference between the koi and the difference of the case of the chaya? Says the Gemara, Ella Amar Rava comes along and he has to suggest that even in a case of a chaya vadai, that what should the halacha be? It should be usher to cover over the blood because you're crushing up the earth, and that's an issa d'oraisa. So why did the Mishnah say the din specifically by the kai? Why by the kai? By the suffix case did you tell me you can't do the kisi adam? It should be the exact same thing by the vadai. Elamar Rabba Ifargira Daitoi Levadai. All's your das. The ashes in your oven, your mindset, your das is to use it for case of ade and not for case of something like the koi. If you bring in dirt to cover over your tsoya, let's say the baby has an accident, you want to cover over some dirt, you're allowed to use that dirt as well for the dam sipur, for the blood of a bird. But dam sipur, that's Rava's din. Why did Rava hold that? Because one's a bigger suffix. And therefore says Rava, if you bring in the dirt to cover over the dam sipur, you're not allowed to use that same dirt to cover over the excrement, because who says the child's going to have an accident? It's more of a suffix. So Rava says when you have something prepared for a vadai, you can't use it for a suffix. So too in our case, the ashes of my oven I prepared for a vadai, for an animal that certainly needs to cover the blood, I cannot use it for a suffix. I cannot use it for this case of a koi. That is the statement and the opinion of Rava. Nahar b'loy amri avilu ichles avar lekas b'dam sibur motor lekasais boy saya. Nahar b'loy argues, and they don't agree with Rava's idea. Rava's idea was when I bring something in for a vadai, I can't use it for a suffix. Nahar b'loy says no, I disagree. Even when it's brought in for a suffix, even when it's brought in even when it's brought in for a vande, like covering over the bird, you're still allowed to use it for a suffix, like covering over the excrement. Says the Gemara, let's now go a little bit off tangent, like we just did, about covering over the tzaya, another discussion. On the first wide line, Amri Marava Bliba Rav Yesi Bar Chama Rav Zira, Amri La Rabba Brid Rav Yesi Bar Chama Rav Zira. Chadamar, one opinion holds Kaya Reu Kitzaya, Chadamar Kaya Enoi Kitzaya. We have a dispute, we have a machlekes. What is the status of a kai? Is covering the blood, the kisi adam of this case of a tzai, just like the case of the tzaya. That what? When I have the dirt prepared to be used to cover over the tzaya, it's allowed to be used for the other one. Why? Because they're both sveikus. And just like I can use the dirt to cover over if the child has an accident, I can use the dirt for the kai. V'chadam, the other opinion says no, they're not the same level. Kai einoi kitzaya. It's not like a tzaya. Covering over the tzaya, the feces, is more common than the kai, which is a real suffix. Again, we're weighing right now how common and often in the level of suffix and vadai between covering over excrement and using it to cover the blood of the kai. And when I bring in dirt for one, am I going to be allowed to use it for the other? Says the Gemara, that's going to be a point of dispute. So Testayim, 3 lines into the wide lines, the Rabu, the Amar Kaya Reu Kitzaya. Let's bring a proof that Rabu is the opinion that the same level of suffix of a kai is the same level of suffix to use the dirt to cover over excrement, and therefore when dirt is brought in for one, it can be used for the other. How do I know that? Dam Sibur also the Kaspa Saya. Tistayim says the Gemara, that's a beautiful raya. We see that even when you brought it in for the Dam Sibur, still it's also the Kaspa Saya. You're not allowed to cover over the Saya. And therefore, what do we see? That Rava holds that covering over the tzaya is a suffix. Again, it's 3 different variables. Let's not get confused. We're proving that Rava holds that covering over the tzaya is the same as covering the kai, meaning that they're both a level of suffix. How are we proving that? We're proving that from the fact that Rava says that when I bring in the blood, when I bring in the dirt to cover over the dam tzibor, I'm not allowed to use it for the tzaya. Why not? Must be that the tzaya is a suffix. Dam tzibor is a vada, is a certainty, but to cover over the tzaya is a suffix, is not as clear, and that's the proof that Rav is going to say it's the same thing as the kai. And now we have another way of learning the case of the Mishnah of Kai, and with this we're going to conclude. Rami Breder Rav Yiba Amar Kai Ainu Taima Deloy Mechasinan. You know why we don't cover over the blood of a Kai? Gezerah Mishamataras Chalboy. A totally new reason. Chazal made Gezerah. They said, don't do Kisei Adam. Don't cover over the blood of this Kai, of this suffix animal. You know why? Because someone's going to think that the Kai is the same thing as a Chaya, and someone's going to see the chaylev is motor. There's 2 types of fat. There's chaylev and there's shuman. Chaylev is allowed, shuman is not allowed. So someone is going to think that the kai is the same thing as the chaya. Why are they going to think that? Because they see you covering over the blood of the kai, and they're going to come to eat the chaylev like you're allowed to eat the chaylev of the, like you're allowed to eat the, like you're allowed to eat that of the, excuse me, I said that backwards. Let's say it one more time. The chaylev is forbidden. The shuman is allowed. So again, what is the Gezerah? Let me say this one more time. The Gezerah is that they were worried that one might think that the koi is like a chaya, and therefore they might think they're going to be allowed to eat the chaylev. Ihachi, says the Gemara, afilu bechol nami. The same thing should apply during the week, meaning we should have the same concern during the week. Answers the Gemara, and to explain one more that, the reason is that the forbidden fats are only usher of a behema. That's when chaylev is usher and shuman is mut. But of a chaya, it's all allowed. So our problem is, you might think that the kai is like the chaya because you're covering over the blood, and therefore the chaylev is permitted. Answers the Gemara, 1 second. So we say the same thing during the week. Afilu b'chol, you should never be allowed to do the kisi adam. We're discussing doing the kisi adam, the covering over the blood of the kai on a Yom Tif. 1 second, even on a regular weekday, you should not be allowed for this concern they can come to eat the chaylev. Answers the Gemara, they're going to say, they're going to think that the reason you're covering over the blood is for a different reason, to clean up your chatzar, and you're not covering it over for the mitzvah of kisi adam, and they're not going to come to think that the chaylev is allowed. Shachat b'ashva, says the Gemara, Michael Maimer, what if you shecht in a garbage? No one's going to think you're covering the blood to clean up your chatzar. You're in a garbage dump. Says the Gemara, a different concern. Another question. Bali malech, Michael Maimer, what if someone comes to ask, am I allowed to cover over the blood? If he's going to be told that you could cover over the blood, he again is going to think, you know why? Because it's like a chaya, and therefore you're allowed to eat the chaylev. Says the Gemara, new taret, el b'chol, inami, el b'chol. You know why you're allowed to cover the blood of a koi? Inami misavka. It's because either a person is going to say he's not sure what the status is, amri le rabbanan ziltar v'chasi, and therefore we don't know what a koi is, so go and cover over the blood. But beyond the misavka, amri le rabbanan ziltarach v'chasi, the rabbanan would never do such a thing. So people are going to make such a differentiation on their own. They're going to realize that if it's on a yontif, they'll never make you cover it, but during the week they will. So we're not concerned during the week, and that is the reason why the koi only specifically on yontif you would not be allowed to cover over the blood, but during the week you would yes be allowed to cover over the blood. I will pick it up from Tani Rav Zera Mir Hashem.